my dears, my name is Sydney Zarlengo, and today we're going to talk about autism. So what is autism? Autism spectrum disorder, or ASD, is a neurological variation that is classified by the DSM-5 and ICD-10 as a developmental disability that affects how we experience the world around us. It affects our language, communication, sensory processing, motor skills, cognition, and social interaction. Before we get into the diagnostic criteria, let's talk about the science that we know. There's still no known cause of autism, though we do know that it is present in individuals in utero, which means it's a lifelong thing. You cannot grow out of autism, you cannot acquire autism, and vaccines do not cause autism. Got it? The most widely accepted theory of what is going on in an autistic brain is slowed apoptosis, or natural cell death. When babies are born, they have a lot of neurons in their brains. All of the neurons, and so many connections between them. This makes them pretty sensitive to external stimuli, which evolutionarily is good considering that babies are potato humans who cannot take care of themselves. Over time, as babies grow up, many useless neurons and neuronal connections are naturally pruned out to make room for more complex connections. This gradually reduces the amount of sensory stimuli people take in over time. For autistic people, this pruning doesn't happen at the same rate. So the world stays just as loud and bright and overwhelming. And this makes it harder to see the bigger picture things and to regulate our emotions because we experience every single connection and sensory piece all at once. To quote Jennifer Cook O'Toole, "It's a bit like having the worst headache in the middle of Christmas mall crowds while wearing an itchy wool sweater under strobe lights while being asked to do calculus, ask your great aunt about her bunions, and rationally invest in the best 401k option. It just isn't going to happen." Alright, now that we have the science down, let's talk about the diagnostic stuff. A diagnosis in the DSM-5 requires 3 categories of things, though this is flawed as it's based on white boys, which we'll talk about in a future video. I will also add that these things are categorized medically as deficits when they're just atypical, but that's also a later discussion. The first category of symptoms, though I don't love the use of that word in this context, is persistent deficits in social communication and social interaction across multiple contexts, as manifested by the following, currently or by history. This then breaks down into 3 sections. The first is abnormal social approach, reduced sharing of interest, emotions, or affect. This can also go the other way and be fully over the top. Many audis feel too much emotion and have too many facial expressions, for example. The general idea of this is the abnormality of it. Next is deficits in nonverbal communicative behaviors, i.e. reading facial expressions. I personally can read them really well, but I often mix up what these expressions mean. For example, sad and exhausted look the same, so does anxious and angry, and it's really easy to mix them up. Then we have deficits in developing, maintaining, and understanding relationships, ranging, for example, from difficulties adjusting behavior to suit various social contexts, to difficulties in sharing imaginative play or in making friends, to absence of interest in peers. The autistic explanation of that run-on sentence is that neurotypical people are confusing, and it's also less of an absence of interest in playing with peers and more disliking the amount of energy it takes to spend time with peers. Also, they tend to mess up how we're playing, and man, is that frustrating! The second category of symptoms is restricted repetitive patterns of behavior, interests, or activities as manifested by at least 2 of the following, currently or by history. This is then broken into 4 sections. The first is repetitive physical behavior. This references stims, or self-stimulatory behaviors to help regulate emotions. My most common stims are rocking back and forth, flapping my hands, snapping my fingers repeatedly, tapping, bouncing my leg, jumping, playing with my tongue, etc. The second is insistence on routine, rigid thinking patterns. This one is, again, related to regulation and comfort. When the world is overwhelming, sticking to a specific pattern of events or plans is something solid to hold on to. And when even that solid foundation gets changed up, we don't necessarily handle it well. The next section is special interests, which are also comforting. Some stereotypical autistic special interests include trains, math, dinosaurs, cars, and memorizing bus schedules. These are also often known as hyperfixations, not just I'm super interested in this thing, but I cannot stop thinking about said thing, I've forgotten to eat /sleep /pee because of the depth of my interest, and I can focus on nothing else. They're a blessing on so many levels, but also a bit of a curse. My special interests include linguistics, sharks, ASL and deaf culture, Disney, World War II, historical fashion, the Russian Revolution, Broadway, psychology, and music. I also have some combo ones, such as the psychology of revolutions and Disney history. And I will happily talk about all of the above for a while, but we don't have time for that today, so moving on. The last in this category is hypo or hyperactivity to sensory input. This means the ability to either sense everything or tune it all out, or both at the same time. For example, I don't feel if I'm pouring hot glue in my hand, but I can hear the buzzing light from the other side of the room. And it really depends on the moment and the sensory input. All of these things make logical sense if you look at them through the lens of that Christmas analogy from earlier. In that situation, you would want nothing more than to become a blanket burrito eating mac and cheese, hugging a stuffed animal, and watching your favorite movie or TV show. Everyone, regardless of neurotype, has days like that. We autistics always live like that. The final criteria for a diagnosis is symptoms cause clinically significant impairment in social, occupational, or other important areas of current functioning. It's important to mention that this is only a significant impairment in neurotypical society. Within a group of neurodiverse people, it's not an impairment. It's also important for me to mention that no autistic person is the same. The DSM shows autism to be a spectrum in levels from level 1, the least severe, to level 3, the most severe. Depending on the day, I am any and all of these diagnoses, so they are more or less pointless. But we'll discuss this in more depth in the next video. For now, just know that all autistic people experience their autism differently, though we are all united by shared experiences and characteristics. It's also important to understand that while autism is considered a medical diagnosis, it's more of a social construct, as all neurological conditions are, but that's a later discussion. It has existed forever, and the only reason it seems to be on the rise is because more people are learning to understand themselves. This has also increased the occurrence of late diagnosis, and I will say this again, just because someone's autism seems to appear later in life, they have had it the whole time. Autism is innate at birth, and due to the specificity of the diagnostic criteria, many people are not diagnosed earlier in life. For example, it took me 2 separate trips to psychological testing until I was finally diagnosed at age 18. I'll also mention that being autistic is not a curse or a disease to be cured. It's just a difference that society isn't quite kind to or accepting of. Yes, it has its struggles, but that's just part of being human. And yes, some things innate to neurotypical people are incredibly difficult for me, but there are many things that are incredibly easy for me that neurotypical people find impossible. I see the world differently, and not only is that important because diversity is great, but also because it makes me who I am. I call myself autistic because I'm proud of my variance, and by knowing I'm autistic, I've been able to learn to cope with a non-autistic and unaccepting world. Knowing and accepting this piece of my identity has given me the opportunity to learn what makes me me and feel happier and more confident in my own skin. I'm autistic and I'm happy, and that's really all that matters. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed that and perhaps learned a thing or two. If you want to learn more, you're welcome to subscribe and stay tuned for more new videos. I mostly post every Saturday and Wednesday morning, and if you have any questions or anything you want to add to the discussion, please feel free to comment below, but always do so with kindness, as I know you would. And next time we're going to talk about functioning labels, so I look forward to seeing you then.